And these create a bunch of loops that just are spirals, they're unproductive, and they're holding you back from making the amount of money that you have the skills to make. Your own psychology is just fighting you. Welcome to Soulful Sales. My name's Bryce, and I help sales reps rewrite their limiting beliefs when improving skills, rewriting scripts, and just the kind of usual trainings that we get just isn't working anymore. So talking about today's video, up front, I want to make this abundantly clear. I am not talking about getting rid of the expected, ongoing fine-tuning, refreshing, learning that we all need to do just as human beings, no matter what we're doing, to stay at the top of our game. All right, I'm not talking about that. I am talking about my experience of, it almost felt like every time I would fix one part of my sales process or pitch, something else would break. Not just like needed work, like did not function anymore, and is part of the reason that I would go from leading the team to last place. Rather than just like the normal ebbs and flows that we all go through of, you know what, the first place guy might take third or fourth 1 month, 2 months, but ups and downs, first place, last place, pretty rare. That should probably tell you something's up. Today I want to talk about some of the things that I found that helped me get out of that slump, get out of that pattern, and create consistent top performance and make more money, and I had a lot more fun doing it. So the biggest one is fear. I had so many fears that were holding me back that were part of the reason that I wasn't fully deploying the skills that I had built. I had a lot of fears, and what's funny is some of those fears even contradicted and were the opposite of another fear. So I had fears of performing well and being recognized. I had just fear of recognition. I had fear of not performing well and being seen as a loser. I had my own expectations, my own mindset going into all this stuff. And this is also part of how I found some of these frameworks is there's a quote by Jordan Peterson that I kind of retooled that says, if the actions don't make sense, look at the outcomes, and there you will find roots that will lead you back to the belief that sprouted the action. Now, before you go off and say, oh, it's probably because you just suck, let me explain a couple of the neurological and hardwired instincts, epigenetics that we all carry as humans that date way back to the caveman days, okay? And I think this will give you a lot more clarity, and maybe you'll be able to see how your own psychology has been limiting you, and maybe you were just thinking, I just need to get better. So the first one I want to talk about is a part of your brain that is called the limbic system. What this thing is, this is the prehistoric part of your brain. Some people call it the monkey brain, the reptile brain. It's just concerned about your safety and survival. That's it. So that's number one. So number one is the limbic system. Number two, you have the RAS. Now, what the RAS does, so it's called your reticular activating system. What this thing does is it's essentially the filter that helps you prioritize and respond accordingly to different stimulus that you're getting. It's the reason that right now I can be focused on this camera without being distracted by the cars driving by or the trees moving in the wind, right? It helps you prioritize and focus. Now, what's interesting about the reticular activating system in particular, when it starts to work in conjunction with your limbic system, is an unknown. This is the reason why kids are scared of the dark. All of us have been scared of the dark at some stage in our life because your brain hasn't understood and developed that thinking mind yet when you're young enough to understand that an unknown, which is darkness, is not inherently unsafe, right? My daughter can be laying in her bed completely safe. You turn the light out and now all of a sudden she doesn't know what's going on. Your brain does the same thing. So let me share a little story to maybe illustrate this point a little bit better. If you think back to the caveman days, what was your key to survival, right? You had your food, you had the shelter, all that stuff, right? But if you got kicked out of the tribe, how long did you last? Not very long, right? So let me show you something. What a lot of people associate with survival and fitting in with the tribe is fitting in with the majority of people, right? That's why everyone wants to fit in. You want to belong somewhere. because it is hardwired into your DNA that means survival. But when do you get attention, right? Back in the old days, what was attention? If you got the full attention of a pack of wolves, it's not great, right? Probably gonna die. So this is what's interesting, is in sales, who gets the most attention? You get the guys on performance plans down here, right? Nobody wants to fail out and suck and get attention, but you also get the top performer. But your brain does not understand the difference between good attention and bad attention. It just knows, and a lot of us carry these subconscious beliefs that attention, standing out, is bad. Where standing out can actually set something off in your own subconscious, whether you picked it up just from being a human or maybe had some experiences as a kid. This is what's going on. This is what was going on for me, at least. So I also want to talk about the concept of emotional homes, because what a lot of us will do is we are more comfortable down here and trying to make the climb up with that chip on your shoulder, got something to prove attitude, and outperform what they were used to, get a bunch of the attaboys, but then the attaboys stop the longer that you're there, because now it becomes expected. And for me, at that time in my career, I actually valued the validation and the attaboys more than I did actually making the money. So again, and this is another crucial thing for you sales leaders, understanding if you've got a guy like that on your team, know who you're dealing with, right? How can you set up those systems to reward them in a way that they find rewarding? Money or a parking space is not for everybody. So coming back to this idea of emotional homes. So there was an experiment that they did where, and I think it was on mice or maybe it was rabbits, but what they did was they would have home number one and they would play a bunch of music, make it hot, just really, and they were trying to simulate what to an animal would be an abusive, uncomfortable situation, okay? And then they would take those animals and they would put them in home number two, and this one was happy. This one was calm, peaceful, quiet, well-fed, all the things. Now here's what's interesting, is the animals that were grown up and spent their infancy, their childhood in this environment, when they were dropped into this one, they would always go home. No matter how bad this home environment was, it was what they were used to. It was their emotional home, and it didn't matter what the outward circumstances were telling them about their environment, that felt like home. Now, when I realized that my brain is wired for survival, and all it wants to do is make sure that I just fit in and survive, and I realized that my emotional home was climbing rather than being at the top, I felt more emotionally safe having something to prove rather than just performing and doing my best and just enjoying being at the top, right? When I realized that was a psychological piece of my wiring, and I took the time to dig in, understand where did that come from? What experiences in my life have taught me that this is a belief that is worth having? Because any of your limiting beliefs or patterns that are limiting you, at one point, you saw a benefit from acting and operating from and through that limiting belief. At one point, it served you and it helped you. It got you through a hard time. But at a certain point in our lives, the medicine becomes the poison. So this is the work that we have to do. There's a quote that says, "You only hold the beliefs that you don't challenge." And most of us have these beliefs that have been growing up with us since you were scared of the dark as a little kid. But now those same root core fears just go by grown-up names. And they're still impacting and they're still putting you back in that little emotional box that feels safe, but is outwardly contrary to the world and life and reality that you are trying to build and that you feel pulled to. This is the key that helped me rewrite it. Hey, real quick, just finishing up editing this video, but there's one little key point that I failed to kind of just wrap this whole thing up, is the limiting beliefs, like your emotional home. Identifying those is the root, is the core to stopping this pattern of having something like you finally fix your discovery and your education breaks, and you fix that, and now your close breaks. When you don't fix the core root problem that is holding you back, it has no choice but to keep manifesting somewhere else in your life where you'll pay attention to it, so that you will finally fix the main thing that's holding you back. Because at the end of the day, all the universe wants to do is have all of us be our best self, right? And the biggest problem that we will look at first readily is when our safety is threatened, right? And that's why I believe sales is such an awesome mirror to help you as you're trying to become your best you, is because there is a ton of different ways that you can learn what ways you're limiting yourself just by simply looking at patterns in your process, in your revenue, and that'll help you identify what limiting beliefs you've got. So I hope that clarified a little bit. I'll kick you back to it. So if any of this resonated with you, there's a couple things that I offer that might be able to help you out. I do free weekly workshop every Thursday at 2 o'clock Mountain Time. I also have a free workshop that I can send over. It's a big document that has a bunch of frameworks in it and questions that can help you start that process of digging in and finding what is your emotional home. What are the limiting beliefs that you have been operating from that you, until now, you just thought that's the way the world was, right? For me, I thought for the longest time that just grind, and the harder something is, the more worthwhile it is just because it's harder. So what would happen is I would make stuff harder that didn't need to be hard. Like I would make a situation more difficult so that I could feel more fulfilled by it, because I got fulfillment from stuff being hard. And these create a bunch of loops that just are spirals, they're unproductive, and they're holding you back from making the amount of money that you have the skills to make. Your own psychology is just fighting you. So if any of that sounds appealing, there's a link in the description to sign up. Just send me your email, and that way I'll put you on the list for the recurring links for those invites to the workshops. If you want the workbook, DM me or just send me an email, comment below, whatever you want to do. Otherwise, like the video, subscribe, and I will catch you on the next one.